we're dealing with a black rock, which we've already said is energy. So really, we're talking about electrons here. But they're not all the same. And so to keep things practical, we look at coal and we divide them into types of coal. And that is largely driven by what we use that coal for. And to get more scientific about the whole thing, we look at the grade of coal. And the grade of coal, also the type, is ultimately driven by chemistry and the physical characteristics of that coal. So let's take a look at these. First of all, broadly in terms of coal types, there are two. They are what we loosely call steam coals or power station coal. And then there are the met coals, the metallurgical coals. And those are the coals that we use for making steel and providing the energy source and the carbon source for making all sorts of exotic metals and to drive a number of industrial processes, as well as certain agricultural processes. Also from the metallurgical coals, we produce other chemicals, exotic things like baking powder, for example, and a whole string of chemicals that goes into our everyday lives that you'll see around you, on your body, in your computer, everywhere. Now, when we look at coal grades, what we do here is we look at the coal in terms of its chemistry and its physical characteristics and its age to an extent. And we basically, if we look at the whole package of coal grades, we start off with brown coals or lignites. Those are the lowest grade coals. The biggest lignite sources today are in Central Europe, former Eastern Germany. It's probably one of the world's largest brown coal resources. Now those brown coals, although they are the youngest and semi-hard, are very important to the German economy still today for all those electrons they produce. Following on brown coal, we move into the black coals, and the grade is broken down into subbituminous and bituminous, and that forms the biggest grouping of the coal grades. And that's followed by the top end of the grade where we move into anthracites. And anthracites effectively are coals where pretty much all the volatile material is gone because it's been buried the deepest, the longest, and often been affected by external sources of pressure and heat. And those coals, very hard, very pure, they typically burn without any smoke, but there's a limited use for them. They're also very expensive. And part of the reason why they're very expensive is there aren't a lot of them. The other issues that we look at in chemistry of coal is the carbon, the hydrogen, the oxygen, the nitrogen, and the sulfur. Some of them are important for the quality of the coal in a positive way, others in a negative way. For example, sulfur is one of the problem issues we have in coal. And so when you look at coal in terms of its grade and its ultimate use, it is important to know how much sulfur there is and whether you can get that sulfur out of the coal. Remember that for later. The other important thing is carbon. And ultimately, so we want to know about the sulfur, for clean purposes. We want to know about the carbon, because therein lies the value as a feedstock. And we want to know about the calorific value, what energy is in there, because in most cases we're selling electrons. And so the critical things are the fixed carbon, the calorific value, and the ash content. The higher the ash content, the dirtier the coal. And we have to design plants to fit to that. All these aspects affect coal uses. And as I have alluded before, coal is used today for pretty much everything that touches our daily lives. From making electrons in the power station, to making petrol that goes in your car, to making gas that goes into your stove, to making the chemicals that goes on the lady's lips, and paints, and the clothes we wear, the shoes we wear, the candles we burn. The list is endless. And part of your personal work at the end of this module will be to go and make a short list of items in your daily life that you can't live without that comes from coal. So, to recap, two main types: met coals for metallurgical purposes and steam coals. Grades from the lowest grade, lignite, brown coal, through to anthracite. And in the middle, the sub-bituminous and the bituminous coals, which forms the biggest basket of our useful coals worldwide.